Welcome to our podcast, Inspiring Living, with me, Mark Candelaria. I am an architect, blogger, traveler, chef, father, and husband. I am the founder and a partner of a fabulous 20-person architecture firm specializing in high-end residential architecture, designing amazing homes across the country and now the world. We have hosted tours over the last 22 years to Italy, Spain, Oregon, and soon France. And in the course of all this, I have met a lot of interesting people who truly inspire me. We are excited to now be in our third season, and our podcast is all about the opportunities that are right there in front of us to inspire living. Yes, we will talk about architecture and design, but every week we will venture into all sorts of topics that will inspire you, teach you, and motivate you to inspire living every day. My guests will include a wide gamut of amazing people, from those in the design industry to clients to real estate professionals, chefs, artists, sports figures, and philanthropists, and people who just flat out get it. Sit back and enjoy, and let's have some fun exploring all the opportunities that are there just waiting for us. Please subscribe and get ready to be inspired with every podcast. Okay, as my dad says, here we go. Thanks everyone for all the listens to our last couple podcasts, and we have some good momentum going, and I'm excited about the podcasts we have coming up, including today's. We come to you today from Nashville, Tennessee, as we are here to check on one of our Candelaria design homes in Franklin, Tennessee, that recently broke ground, and to catch a Jarvis Campbell performance, which we did last night. What a great time. We are now packing up and getting ready to drive across the Smoky Mountains, and we are headed to the High Point Market in North Carolina, where I have a book signing tomorrow at Art Italia at 200 Steele Street, showroom 110, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So if you're at the market, swing by and say hello. I'll be there all day with my good friend Marco Felicioli. Check out my podcast with him. The link is in the episode notes. Okay, so speaking of my book, Mark Candelaria Homes, it is out, and thank you for all the text, posts, and messages from those of you who have purchased and received the book, and thank you to all of you who came to my book launch and signing at the agency last month. After the High Point Market signing tomorrow, we will be having another signing Thursday, May 11th, hosted by Iconic Magazine at Expressions Gallery from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. Make sure to swing by and pick up a signed copy of my book there in Scottsdale. That will be a really fun evening for sure. Okay, you can purchase the book on our website. We will include the link in the episode notes, or on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, and now I see Target is carrying it. 178 pages featuring 12 amazing Candelaria design homes, accompanied by 12 of my favorite recipes. Please order your copy today. Okay, today I have the pleasure of having two amazing artists here at Casa Candelaria. Actually, I'm in Nashville, but I recorded in Casa Candelaria a couple weeks ago, and along with the spouse of one of the artist guests, and I'm really looking forward to a discussion on art, the career of these two artists, and what it is like to live with an artist. So without further ado, let's talk art and the Scottsdale art scene. Here we go. Today I'm joined by two incredible artists, Ryan Schmidt and Priscilla Nelson. And Ryan also brought his wife,
Janice.
Yes, Janice. And Priscilla is an amazing contemporary figurative painter whose art career spans over 40 years. And Ryan is an amazing sculptor of stainless steel since 2002. And today his works are featured all over the world. So welcome, you guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, this is great. Now, Priscilla and I did a podcast about a year and a half ago, and we'll put the story notes so you can check that podcast out. I was actually listening to it this morning, and we did a good podcast. I
thought we did.
Yes. It was good to listen to it again, and so it prompted some new questions that I didn't get to ask you the first time. So get ready, okay?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so how long have you both known each other?
4 years, I think.
4 years.
Yeah. 4 years.
We're starting the fourth year now.
And
Correct.
You guys met at the art show, right?
Yeah,
Correct.
Celebration of Fine Art.
Celebration of Fine Art in Scottsdale. Okay, and then I'm going to tell you a little quick how we all met, okay? So Priscilla and I met by being board members on Scottsdale Arts.
Correct.
We both came in about the same time. You came in a little bit before me.
Yeah, but just by a couple months.
By a couple months.
Yes.
And so we've had the nice occasion of seeing each other at the board meetings and some of the functions, and it's been a lot of fun. My only regret is I don't have enough time with you, but we did the last podcast at your studio, which was fantastic. I could have spent the whole day there. So
It was fun having you there.
It was a lot of fun. And then Ryan and I, we have an interesting story. So I was doing a rendering of a house, a contemporary style house. and they wanted to incorporate a couple sculptures at either end of a long water feature that I was designing along the side of the house. And so I was kind of, doodling around and just, sketching some ideas. And I sketched out a couple cool contemporary, what I thought were kind of modern pieces on my rendering. And then I think we flash forward a few weeks later to an ARA event or something.
Right, yeah, it's ARA.
And I don't know if I know the story exactly, but you can correct me, Ryan. I believe I opened up the ARA book, and I saw one of your sculptures in it. And I go, wait a minute, that's the sculpture I sketched.
Yeah.
Who is this guy? And so I think then we met shortly thereafter, and you kind of told me who you were, and I said, yeah, I'm a sculptor, and my stuff's in ARA. I said, wait a minute, are you the guy that sculpted these pieces? And he goes, yeah, that's me. I said, and I popped my phone open, and I said, let me show you a rendering I just did. And here it was, his two sculptures that I just somehow...
They looked so similar.
So similar. It was so
similar.
weird.
Yeah, it was pretty serendipity.
It was total serendipitous. So then what happened, and correct me again if I get this wrong, I told my client the story, okay? I said, the rendering, and you like the way I did that, and remember the two pieces at the end? I said, yeah. So I told her the story. I said, I actually know the artist that made those imaginary pieces, and would you like to meet him? She goes, oh my God, I would love to meet him. And I think you did, and I think you sold her some pieces.
Yeah, they bought both pieces.
Both pieces. So now here it is. It's going to be totally manifested.
That's not a scary story, actually. You imagine it and you find the artist through a book.
Yeah, I mean, I think it played out well.
It's amazing. It's
great.
one of the best stories ever, I think. So hence why you're here today. And so I'm very excited about this because, as I told Priscilla in our first podcast, when I first started as a young artist, I wanted to be an artist. I either wanted to be an architect or an artist. I guess I chose architecture, and it's worked out real well for me. But I still like to paint, and every once in a while I get the inkling to go paint. I've been working on a painting for about 3 years now. I'll get it done one of these days.
Oh, I want to see it.
Yeah. But I love to paint. I paint more in your style, Priscilla.
Good. Then I definitely need to
Yeah,
talk.
but I could definitely use some lessons. So I definitely would like to hang out at your studio sometimes.
Anytime.
Sculpture, the only power tool I can operate is an iPhone, okay? So you're not going to get me around anything that needs tools.
Well, then let me find you a block of clay.
that might work. That's possible.
You just might get your fingernails dirty, though.
Yeah,
That'd be the only
that
thing.
wouldn't be the first time. So let's start about telling our listeners a little bit about each of your backgrounds. I'm going to start with you first, Ryan. You grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas, and kind of tell us the story from there.
Sure. Yeah, born in 1980. My father had a playground business, and so I think he started that when I was very young, maybe 4 years old or 5 years old or something. So he actually designed, manufactured, sold, and installed, site prep, the whole landscaping thing for projects for churches, schools, parks, all over the state of Arkansas.
Okay.
And so very young, I was hands-on with a lot of stuff, helping my dad.
Oh, that's cool.
Working with wood, with metal, plastic, the landscaping. And my mother, both her parents are very creative, but my mom had us doing, paper mache projects and taking us to the library, and I'm checking out origami books at the age of 5 because I couldn't read yet, So I'm just following the pictorial
of how to make something.
Situation and, playing with that style of paper and stuff. And, but that's a little bit of the kind of the footing there that led me into thinking about art.
Gotcha.
So coming into, high school, it was a very strong subject for me was painting.
Yeah. And did they have art when you were in high school?
Oh yeah. And
well,
we
they don't
had
anymore.
A shop
so.
class and there were all kinds of, fun projects to do now that I think that maybe more schools should offer stuff that I had.
I totally agree with that. I think that's one of the big misses that we are experiencing now in our industry is there aren't any artists anymore.
It's a huge loss.
Yeah, it's a huge loss. Okay, so Priscilla, tell us your story real quick.
So born in Washington, D.C., lived in Greenwich, Connecticut, Costa Rica, and Virginia. I'm sure as heck not going to tell you what year I was born. But... So, the same story. I mean, since I was a kid, I always had a pencil, piece of paper. I had parents that, although were not artists, both of them were extremely supportive and encouraging. And every Christmas, every birthday, I would wake up to new materials, whether it was clay or acrylics. And I always had a little area. in the house that belonged to me for me to do art.
Yeah,
And
sounds
so
familiar.
I've done it all my life.
We grew up with a big basement that was unfinished.
That was me, yeah.
Yeah, and so that was my studio. I built whole Lego cities that occupied the entire basement,
Yeah.
And so
Awesome.
Which actually was good because it allowed you to make mess.
yeah, and you didn't have to
And
pick it
that
up.
is so important to the creative process, is to have the freedom to be messy and try things.
Right. And keep working on things.
Yes.
You didn't have to put it away and start over. You could keep working on it and let it evolve, which is
Exactly.
exactly what we would do. So that's really cool. So yeah, parents, listen to this. Great gifts, Legos, paints, art kits, erector sets. Okay? Seriously. I've got a group of people sitting right here that's just proof of that experience and what happens with it. So makes for some great artists down the road, I think.
I agree.
Right? Okay, so based on what you just said, was there a point, Ryan, where you woke up one morning, I don't know if you were age 3, 8, 18, where you said to yourself, I'm an artist? Did that ever dawn on you? I mean, did you ever wake up and go, I'm an artist today?
You
and
know,
I'm going to be an artist.
I didn't. I don't think that realization
morphed?
came until college.
Okay.
And I kind of initially it was basketball was the direction.
Oh, interesting.
So I came out of high school thinking I want to be, hoop dreams. I want to be a professional basketball
Awesome.
player.
That's cool.
The art thing just started taking more traction after I got into college.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I studied quite a variety of things before I landed on what in stainless. But totally. That the realization happened in college, I think.
Okay. And what about you, Priscilla?
I actually have an actual age 14. I sold my first 4 paintings, small little pieces. Teachers Association in Reston, Virginia had a show, and I was the only student invited to participate. And I hung my 4 little pieces. That in itself was huge. And then a patron came and bought all 4. And I remember that night because I literally said to myself quietly, I said, oh, wow, I'm an artist.
That's cool.
So I think that was the first realization that, what I was creating had value.
Had value. Yeah, that's cool. You just jogged some memories for me. I guess I was probably an artist before I became an architect, which I kind of alluded to earlier. I think it was probably in 2nd or 3rd grade, maybe a little bit later. The school took us on a field trip to the Denver Symphony. And we then had to go back and paint a painting of our inspiration from the symphony. And I painted, it was Billy the Kid riding through the forest, and I painted it. And then they had some kind of judging or something. Anyway, my painting got picked by the Denver Symphony to stay at the Denver Symphony.
Oh,
Wow, congratulations.
So I had forgotten about that story till you just said that. And then in
Wow.
7th grade, I did sell a painting at the junior high school art show. So it was like...
Yeah, those are defining moments.
Yeah, I mean, you realize that what you do has some worth, and it motivates you, So I want to talk a little bit about your art, okay?
Okay.
So, Ryan, tell us about your art. You and Priscilla are completely different in terms of the type of art. Yours is very three-dimensional. You're a sculptor. You're a figurative painter. 2 different worlds, but very similar worlds in a lot of ways. Differences and similarities.
I agree with
right? So go ahead, Ryan. Give us a little snippet. I know this is a podcast. No one can see you work, but we'll
Sure.
we'll post some of your imagery.
Well, it's I guess to kind of categorize it, I do some modern, contemporary, free-flowing forms, have fluid in the movement. I do 2 different processes. One is like the bronze. It's the lost wax method for stainless steel, where I make a piece in clay. We make a mold. You produce a wax.
Yep.
And then we're pouring stainless. A little
Into
bit,
it.
just a little bit warmer than bronze, but basically the same process. And then what I started back in 2002 or 3, somewhere around there, I started figuring out how to stretch the sheet metal. And so I was starting with 2-dimensional sketches, flat sketches on sheet metal, and I started tack welding the inside curves together on 2 pieces while they're laying flat against each other. And I'm stretching the curve into itself which opens up the piece into a triangular form and creates a compound bend on both sides. So this, once it's all been sanded and polished out, the reflections are really distorted as you walk around the piece. It takes whatever's in the environment, whether it's a sunrise or sunset or landscaping, or if it's interior, whatever's in the home, and just takes that reflection and gives it a funny mirror twist.
That's cool. That reminds me of that piece of art in front of the Fields Museum or whatever in Chicago.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. The giant globe or whatever it is.
The bean. That's Anish Kapoor's Cloud Gate.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Yep. No, that's cool. So just what you said there totally lost me, which I love, because you're bending, you're molding. It's like, holy cow. So what strikes me about what you do is how creative and inventive and experimental what you do. I mean, it's probably endless, right? I mean, you can just experiment with things.
I could keep going,
but
at some point, you have to try to find closure on a piece because it could keep reworking or add more, or there's a lot of room for flexibility.
But there's also like a lot of room for discovery.
That too.
Experimentation,
exactly.
And you're discovering new things and new twists. And wow, I never do this. Could do that. Let me see what I can create with this. Mm-hmm. That's so cool. I love that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun process.
Yeah.
It's been an adventure. Yeah.
Okay, Priscilla, your turn.
So, I'm contemporary figurist, and contemporary, I think it's got more of a modern edge.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, Ryan is a sculpture artist, but his has a very modern edge.
Right.
And so mine, although very realistic, it still has a style that if I had $1 for every gallery that had said, we haven't seen this style, and we don't know exactly
That's great.
what style that is. Now, my opinion, as an artist, you want to die knowing you've developed your own style.
Right.
So I take it as a compliment. But it's the same thing as the process, of playing around, of experimenting. At 45 years of painting, I've developed a style, and I have a certain way of doing things. And we have to be careful as artists, in my opinion, not to lose that process of experimenting, of playing around.
So I was just going to ask you.
Yeah, so I make it a point. Sometimes I change the subject matter. So you come to my studio and you'll see some pieces that you're like, wait a minute, this is not on her website. I didn't even know this was her art. But the way I actually like to do it, I have an abstract series. And that's completely different thought process and creative process. And I get to play with materials, bark paper that I deconstruct or make my own. And it makes you think differently. And then, believe it or not, I then apply that. I go and do my regular painting, and I have learned something in this other process that changes and makes my painting evolve.
That's very cool. Yeah, so it's similar in architecture. I mean, when I travel, I'll see new things and new materials, and I go, oh, that's really cool. I wonder how I could incorporate that into something that I'm doing. So it's all the same. And then I like to cook. It's the same thing.
Right.
Like, that's a great ingredient. How do I use that in something,
That's not happening with me.
But totally with me, though.
It is. You like to cook, don't you, Ryan?
If I'm not making art, I'm making food usually.
There you go. We got to team up, bud.
We have more to talk about later.
I love that.
Just send the invitation. I'll show up.
There you go. That's all we got to do. Okay, so you guys were both featured artists during the 3-month Celebration of Fine Arts exhibit in Scottsdale. It just wrapped up about a few weeks ago, right?
Correct.
Tell us about that.
It's a unique show. Well, not many left. A lot of the shows that started this way have been, because of the time and the process and the commitment, have evolved more into galleries,
right,
doing those shows. So that we can still find a show where the artists are there for 3 months. We're working, we're painting. And what's really special and what's important about the show is you get to meet the artist, you get to see the process, you get to ask questions as a collector or as an art lover. And I've always said that the value of a painting when you get to know the artist is different.
Right.
It just adds a certain level, certain storyline, connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish more shows and even galleries would bring that relationship back where the collector gets to engage with the artist.
I think that's so important. For me, it's that connection that I love. Just a little bit of time I've gotten to spend with the two of you. It's like I can't wait to have some of your art in my house, just because I know who you are. I know a little chunk of your soul, And it's that aspect of it. I mean, some people buy art because it either looks pretty or they think it's an investment. I buy it because there's some type of connection of some sort. Like I'm looking across my room there at Portofino. That's the first trip I went to Italy with Isabel. So I've got that memory. And so it's things like that I think people need to understand about art, and I think that's why I encourage artists and patrons to really connect.
And if I may add, it's not only important for the patron or the collector. As an artist, I learn so much from the feedback.
Yeah.
That every time I've done the show.
So it's a two-way street.
It's a two-way street. And I think, art is a very isolated environment. We're in our studios. We're alone. We're not working with other artists for the most part. And so we as artists have lost that contact with just collectors, even people that are not necessarily looking at your art because that's not their style.
Mm-hmm.
They still talk to you, still learn something from them.
Right.
Yeah, it's this show is pretty wonderful. Celebration of Fine Art there's not another show that I've done really like that one. Most of them are a shorter situation, but this long show, it definitely gives a larger group time to come through into Scottsdale, in this area.
It's not a short window. It's a nice long window.
Right. So there's a bunch of different groups that will come in at different times, and that's why I think the show is quite successful because it broadens the potential for somebody to come through it that isn't normally going to come for a one weekend situation.
Right.
So it's been amazing. Love it out here. We moved out here for the show.
Did you? When did you move out here?
I'm starting the 4th year here.
Okay, so not that long. You've been here how long, Priscilla?
10 years almost.
10 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this show also dispels the common thought process that artists don't get along and they don't work well together, and they're, you have 100 artists at this show, and you see it constantly, the creative process. And we help each other and we learn from each other. And there are times that I'm doing a painting and I'll call someone that does landscape because they'll see things differently.
Right. No, that's what's nice about it. And we have the same thing with our architecture with our ARA group, which you've seen, Ryan. I mean, here we are, like, I don't know how many there are of us now, 12 or 14 or whatever. And technically we're all competitors, but I look at us more as all collaborators and we all try to help each other rise all the boats, and it works. We've had this group now for, I don't know, 16 years, 25 years. I don't know how long. It's been a long time.
Wow. Okay.
And, it's just one of those things that I think it's great that you learn from each other.
Yeah, it's, bouncing ideas back and forth, some criticism, which is definitely needed, and because it's easy to
get lost.
It's easy to have blinders on when, let's say, you're the only one that's critiquing your work, and sometimes if you've got an outsider view, I mean, you're going to have sometimes some good perspective. So.
Sure. Yeah. So, how is the Scottsdale art scene in general? Would you say? I know you're on the board with me at Scottsdale Arts.
It's a very healthy scene, and it's just, you have to realize, just like as artists, it's not, we can just not go into any gallery and say, oh, my art's great, your art's great, you have to find the right fit. And Scottsdale, I think, has changed in the 10 years that I have been. It's still very much a Western art town.
It's changing, though.
But it's changing.
I mean, I've lived here 40 years, and you would not even recognize this town.
Exactly. And I was coming here for a while, so it's definitely changing, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Santa Fe, art, change. I mean, you see a lot more galleries there that have contemporary art. And there's still other pockets. My art does really well in Florida, Miami area, and so on, and it does really well in Vancouver, Canada, of all places. And it's okay to find those pockets, which work for me. But I like the fact that here in Scottsdale, I'm not the norm.
Interesting. And I would say that's you too, Ryan, in some ways.
Yeah, it's this market. It's a new angle for me here. I've been in bigger cities doing other different shows and stuff, from Hamptons to Miami to L.A. I've got a gallery up in Michigan,
right?
But the scene here in Scottsdale is pretty special. I like it. It's definitely modern country.
Yeah,
I'd say it's making a shift. Things are definitely there's still
You're not
so much.
sculpting cowboys on horses? No?
Not yet. No, I'm just kidding. I could see maybe playing something abstract on that, but
yeah. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes great art, in your opinion, Priscilla?
I think when it resonates with someone.
So kind of what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and we have to be careful not to get too much into the process and the technique. And, I've seen art where the figure is perfectly rendered, and there's no storyline, and there's no passion, and there's no vision. And so I think is when the artist puts a little bit of their soul and story, and it resonates with someone.
Right.
And I think that's what makes great art. And it doesn't have to be realistic or abstract. It's what speaks to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I would say. If it resonates with people, even if they're not going to buy the art, I think that's what makes it great.
Right.
Art.
So when you paint something, it's your story that you're telling?
Always. It's my vision.
You're not trying to anticipate what someone might want from a commercial standpoint and say, well, I'm going to try to tap into what someone else's story might be, and I'm going to paint something that the market's going to want.
Well, and we all do that because you say, oh, this trend, look at figurative art, and now they have slashes of painted across the face or something. It's beautiful,
right?
But when I see that, my first thought is, well, it's already been done.
Yeah, that's not me.
That's you're now copying somebody.
Right.
But I think all artists go through the process. Especially those of us that do it for a living, and we have to pay the bills. We say, gee, the trend seems to be going Western. Western art is the number one genre selling art in the United States. Still is.
That's amazing.
And that's
I didn't know that.
But it's not what I'm passionate about.
Right.
It's not what I do. So as artists, I think we need to be very careful that we stay true to what we're passionate about, because the viewer, the collector, can sense that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because architecture is the same way. We go through trends, Tuscan, brown, light, contemporary, French. I mean, we've seen it all in my 40 years. But, for me, I like to look what's going on. I like to see what's happening. I like to see inspiration images and go, that's cool, but I'm going to interpret it this way. So it's similar, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You see something, you're like,
you go, oh, that's a cool idea.
You pay attention to what you do. Pay
but you don't
attention
copy
to what
it.
Collectors are doing or what is being built. I mean, I have a lot of, interaction with the trade.
Yeah.
So I'm very aware of what their clients want.
Right.
But in that situation, I'm more likely to work as a commission than change my art and what
Completely.
I'm passionate about.
Right. What about you, Ryan?
There's a lot of area in that direction where for a commission where I'm going to end up doing something that the client's going to have some input on, or what I've done quite a bit of is some logo representation, where I'll take somebody's flat logo and make it 3D and pop it in my style, and then have it cast, or if I'm able to stretch it in sheet metal, I'll try it that direction too.
Yeah,
right.
And Ryan said something that's really important, and it's his style. That even if you're doing a commission, you're still true.
You're sticking to brand, which we just had a whole
exactly.
podcast on branding. It's like you don't go outside of your brand, right?
Well, but there is. I say, well, what I'm thinking of in brand is that direction. Sometimes, for me, I like to stretch the boundaries and try to play a little bit and see how far you can still keep it true to something, but start having a couple of situations where it's changing. Obviously, you've got the option to pull back at some point,
right?
But you've got to push the boundaries,
exactly,
and then you got to keep reinventing yourself.
It's always changing, right?
I mean, if you think about what Frank Sinatra went through, 7 decades of reinventing himself as a singer.
It's amazing.
So and in the arts, prime example is Picasso.
Sure.
Right.
I mean, just because you're good at something, he's still passionate about the figure, but that changed, that evolved, and that's really important. It doesn't mean when you say you're sticking to your style or what you're passionate about, it does not mean that as an artist you're not still learning and evolving.
Exactly. So as an artist, as an architect, we have to pay the bills, right?
Yes.
And so we were talking about this earlier before we started the podcast. When it comes down to it, I mean, you got to produce great art, but you also have to pay the bills, And so we talked about commission pieces. and how the economics of that work. I was very intrigued by that because I always wondered, do you get a commission, you paint it, and then you send them a bill? Or do you get a deposit, and then what happens if they don't like what you painted? How does that work?
Most of the time for me, well, I did have about a 65% deposit for some time, but lately for some of the smaller ones, and just been doing a full amount up front. That way
You're covered.
I'm covered.
Yeah. I mean, I know how it is in my business, and sometimes you're chasing money. You're like, okay, we finished the drawings and you're building. I need to get paid. It's you never know what the situation's going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have commissioned pieces where, have you ever had to go chase somebody?
Well, yeah. I mean, gosh, I had this project. I spent about 200 hours putting together the consulting with a structural engineer. I built a scaled model, arranged to build this, giant 30-foot structure for a city up near Detroit. And it was a 3 or 4 trips from Arkansas up there.
Yeah, and you got to pay for all that.
And no, I did not get compensated for this, and they ended up not doing the project.
Oh, jeez.
And so, the next time there's a situation like that at Bay, there's going to be a very large amount up front just to come up with design.
Sure, absolutely. What about you, Priscilla?
It's the same thing. It's experience, right? And I make it very clear, you want a commission. This is my style. This is what I do.
Right.
And be clear that it's not going to look like another artist's work, whereas, I had someone not too long ago at the show, they wanted a certain piece, and they said, oh, we want this and that, and they're describing it, and I'm like, I have the perfect piece for you. And I took them to another booth.
And they're artists.
And I'm like, here it is. And they're going, oh. And I'm like, you describe this, and I don't do this.
Right.
And that's okay. So I think expectations, I make it very clear in writing,
mm-hmm.
but I take 50% down. I want the piece I deliver to be loved and what the client wants.
Right.
They're spending hard-earned money. One thing that I do nowadays is they get the commitment of doing, or they want the commission 50% down,
mm-hmm.
and then I'll do the rendition or the sketch. About 2 years ago, it was a really large piece this collector wanted. I did the drawing and the back and forth, and then when that was done, he tries to bring the price down. And that's when I said, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. You got to stick to your guns.
Yeah, I've been doing this for 45 years.
Yeah.
And so you have to be careful. But for the most part, people want the commission and they work with you. But every once in a while, you have to chase after.
Yeah, and it's different when you're first starting, and your perspective when you're first starting out as a young artist.
Correct.
Versus 40 years, you just aren't going to put up with it.
No.
And having some or several projects at Bay, so you've got time. It is in the element of the situation.
Big time.
And so if they want to get on this projected future for some work, then
right?
Yeah, there's got to be a commitment,
two-way commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So, when you start a piece of art, does it always go the way you want it to go, or does it change, or do you ever scrap it and just go, "Oh my God, this is just a disaster. I'm starting over."
Sure. I've had pieces that I started and I couldn't quite figure out what was going to be next with them, and so I didn't touch it for a year or two on some of them. Whereas sometimes if the flow comes together quickly, sometimes they can come to closure.
Yeah.
Or you just find a stopping point because at some point you can just keep adding on or keep going with some design.
Right.
So
what about you, Priscilla?
Yeah, I have maybe 4 unfinished paintings in the studio, and the energy became so negative. The more I struggle to figure it out, the more I'm like, so I have them there, and I've 8 years, 10 years later, yet to reach him. But no, I think, at least for me, I have my model, I have the water, or what I'm doing, and I'm the kind of artist that as I paint it, I'll remove all the clothing or add clothing or change color. So mine is always changing. And that's what I like to do. That's part of my creative process. There's one painting that I had in mind that I was always going to do for years, and it took me a while to figure it out. It was struggle painting it, and I painted it during the show. And this is where 3 artists came And I'm like, all right, look at this. What am I missing? And immediately, Matt Sievers was like, oh, you need a hand to anchor this. And my process of painting was, if you have it right side up, she's in the water, with her face out into the sky.
Yep.
If you flipped her around, it completely makes sense to the viewer, but now it's a surrealist piece.
Right.
Because she's now floating in air.
Right.
And we know physically that's not possible. So that took 4 years of, in my mind, trying to figure out, what could I do that was realistic but surrealistic without doing something like too out there like Salvador Dali would or something.
Yeah.
Like
So
that.
your pieces take a lot of time, as do yours, Ryan, right?
Yes.
I mean, typically, how long does a piece take?
A couple of months. Couple of months start to finish. With what I'm doing there, I'm doing about 15 steps with the sanding and buffing and polishing. And so the actual finishing of the surface of the form takes about 3 times longer than actually building the piece usually.
Gotcha.
Unless we're talking about foundry work. Foundry work can be 8 months on a project sometimes, just to go through all the all the steps there.
Right.
But I can usually get some closure if I have a design pretty quickly in the sheet metal. But the polishing just takes.
So what's been one of your biggest challenges as an artist, Priscilla?
Oh, you can go into, it's a cliche, but again, if I have had $1 for every time I hear, "Oh, you're a real artist," I don't know what that means. So when I say I'm an artist, I mean it.
You're a real artist.
Oh, you're a real artist. So it's almost initially being taken seriously,
right?
And when you think about it, we put our babies out there.
Yeah,
we put a lot
it's
of
hard,
time,
isn't it?
a lot of passion.
Oh yeah.
And I'm pretty Teflon skin, and I can take criticism really well. But still, there's that part of you. It's almost scary to have opening night at a gallery.
Oh yeah.
Because you never know what's going to happen. But again, is you start up painting, and sometimes am I in the right direction, and going back, never scrap it. There's a painting that I painted her face 12 times.
Wow.
And I almost destroyed it. And it won an award, and it sold in Washington, D.C.
There you go. That's good inspiration.
Night. And that painting took 15 months.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
And I almost scrapped it. It was probably one of the most important paintings I've ever done.
See, there you go. You never know where the road's going to lead you.
Correct.
Sometimes you abandon I've learned that from our travel tours in Italy. It's like some of the best memories from my travelers were trips or day trips that we had it all planned out, and a disaster happened, but we turned it into the best thing, and everyone goes, that was the best day of the entire trip. It could have been a disaster had we stopped.
Well, I think art's that way.
Everything's that way. Life's that way.
From the mistake, we learn, and we even learn a new step. But, one of the things, I think, going back, as an artist, I think the most difficult thing is stopping our inner voice of saying we're not good enough.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Do you guys ever go through that? I mean, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I'll be drawing a house, and I go, God, do I really know what I'm doing here? Am I as good as everybody says I am, or I don't know if this could be better. What's wrong with this? I mean, do you ever have that inner voice?
Sure, but maybe
beating you up.
Maybe those inner voices aren't necessarily coming from you. Maybe they're coming from a negative force,
Who knows?
Because they're out there.
Yeah.
But if you marinate more on, let's say this concept of incompetence or whatever, then eventually you might say something about it, and then maybe you stop at some point.
Yeah.
So and I've learned early on that you gotta sometimes kick those to the curb.
Yeah,
it's tough.
That's what I do.
You gotta just try to take a big look at the big picture.
Yeah.
Take a step back and be like, this is what I enjoy doing. Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes life is challenging, straight up.
Yeah.
So I mean, you've got all these other factors outside of the work mode that could be influencing your thoughts.
Sure. Well, and I've learned as I've gotten older, I can identify that voice, and I go, okay, this is that stupid voice, and I go, okay, I'm going to show you, and I come up with some new things. I'm going to keep working it, and I'll let and then it turns into this great house, and so I've learned you got to work through that. You just got to get through that.
But I think our inner voices reflect, like Ryan says, what we've heard from the outside.
From the outside.
Mm-hmm.
I think they do. I think, or you hear something, or you hear how difficult the arts are. You know, a couple years ago, someone was like, I don't know what I said, but God knows what I said. But somebody said, boy, you artists really have egos. And I'm sitting there going, wow, do I have an ego? And then all of a sudden I looked at this person, I said, we have to have egos.
You got to be strong.
Do you know how many nays and no's and I don't want to buy your piece?
Yeah.
This is not what I wanted.
Well, what you do as an artist and architects to the same degree, everything we do is so subjective.
It is, and
you know,
yeah,
it's not math. It's not A plus B equals C or whatever. It could be anything.
There are a lot of variables.
Yeah.
Tons of variables.
One of my favorite comments was this woman came up to me at the show and goes, "Oh, you really sell this?"
Oh God, nice.
And I'm like,
I could hear Rodney Dangerfield. And you came out of your house looking like that?
Yeah, and you just have to laugh. You just
right.
That ego has to sort of take over right there and tell yourself, no, yeah, I do sell.
Yeah,
this.
you need confidence to stay in this game.
Yes,
it does.
You need it. You need to surround yourself with positive people and positive situations because it's sometimes you're against the world. It is you against the world, you know, and
really is.
And being an artist is a lonely career in some ways.
It can be. It can be very tough.
In the studio,
it can be
it's
very
not like
tough.
you're there with a music band with 10 other people performing with you.
And I'm an extrovert on steroids. So
yeah, you are. So that's got to be hard, right? To be locked away in your studio.
It is. Yeah.
So knowing what you know now about a career in art, what would you tell or advise a young person about pursuing a career in art?
Sure. So I'll directly speak to my kids on this one because they're trying to tell me some things like, oh, we don't need to, go to school. We need to just graduate early, and we already know what we want to do. And I'm thinking to myself, well, no. My experience, though, was that I studied lots of different interests in the art. And I didn't know what I wanted to do as a final situation, but I went through painting, photography, ceramics, printmaking.
You explored a lot of different mediums.
And if I hadn't gone down those avenues of things that I don't do today, but I might not have landed where I am.
Right.
So you have to try. You got to search. You got to go out and adventure. And if you're not exploring that, or you're closed-minded to new things, then you could be missing opportunity.
Right. Do you feel the same way?
Oh yeah. Well, this will age me. When I was making the decision, it was either you become you're a biology major, or you're an artist. And what I tell kids nowadays, you can be all. You can be a doctor and still do your art,
right.
And you can even pick a college degree that will help you pay those bills as you develop your art.
Mm-hmm.
It's not either or.
Right.
So I think that's really important. One of the things that we miss, I think, I tell kids all the time, this is not an easy career.
No.
This is really hard.
Right?
And it's feast or famine. And awesome if you want to do it. Just be smart about it and be aware of what you will need to do. There were times in my life that I worked 3 jobs.
Yeah.
Right? And during the day. And at night I would paint because I was just starting. And, some of us are very lucky to have family members, spouses that are very supportive. I didn't always have that.
Right.
And so you're sort of like struggling and fighting to be that artist.
Well, that's a good segue. I have Janice here, Ryan's wife, right?
Yes.
And so she's sitting. She's been very patient listening to all this. What's it like?
I enjoyed this.
What's it like being married to an artist?
That's a very good question, Mark. It's interesting because I have to be completely honest. It could be frustrating, but also fascinating. Because the unknown during the day, like how creative artists are, it's you just don't know how your day is going to go by. And coming from a structured lifestyle, I always have my day planned out, because, I know it's going to save a lot of time and cost. But at the end of the day, I learned how to be more flexible.
Go with the flow.
And it's going to be okay. And like you all said earlier, that it's, sometimes the disastrous event could lead to the best
thing
time
ever
of your life. Yeah. So that's my day is like.
Now, how long have you two been together?
12 years now.
12 years.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And you have, one or two kids, did I hear you say?
3 in the household.
Three
so
in the household.
we're pretty blended.
Gotcha.
And I love it because they're all like Ryan and they adopted more of the creativity.
Nice.
Some are, sporty, and I like the dynamic of like the whole the whole party.
The whole thing. Now, are you creative? Are you an artist or?
You know what? Unfortunately, I didn't pursue that when I was in elementary. I was more into sports.
Okay.
And I majored computer science with extended studies in accounting. I just like did more of the financial management. And Ryan was really instrumental on me pursuing or collaborating more on how I could open myself into learning more of the fine art.
Gotcha.
So a few years ago, I became more, I spent some time working for the city of Beverly Hills to like co-chair some of the art events there, which is like very significant, and I enjoyed it.
Nice.
So I'm just, interconnecting with that.
Yeah.
And
How do you
being
like
more
Arizona?
useful. You know what? It's at first
'Cause
I
you're from
thought it's gonna
California,
be
right?
toasty. Yes, I'm from I'm actually from Philippines, which is
Okay.
not that bad, but
Right.
it's more humid. But I like it how dry it is. But outside the weather, I really think that there's more intimacy in the connection
Yes.
that we make here.
Yeah, we've been talking about that. How Phoenix is such a different city compared to Los
Right,
Angeles in terms of the
I just love
connectivity of
it.
the people. It's a big difference,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it's a
I think
huge
maybe just the
difference.
size of LA is just so vast, and that people just don't connect the way we connect in this city.
Well, I think that we reinforce in cities who we are.
Yeah.
And LA has a different attitude, different mentality that they do here.
It's quite different, I think.
Yes, and Ryan and I made the best connections here and friendships so far. In between art and the kids and
It's great.
the groups like yours and
Yep.
all the amazing
That's awesome.
events here.
That's
So.
great. So, who is your favorite artist, Priscilla, of all time?
Oh, shoot. So Picasso
Yeah, you
was
mentioned
huge
Picasso.
because of how he grew, how he developed. There's the angst of, Van Gogh and the struggle.
Right.
And I always appreciated that. I just dropped a couple of tears because one of my favorites is Vermeer. And one of the, he only did 37 works of art. 3 of them are the only 2 not being put together. And it's in Amsterdam. And it's one of a kind, once in a lifetime show. And by the time I found out about it, 450,000 tickets were sold out.
Wow.
And so those would be my 3
Wow,
favorite
that's
artists.
good. What about you, Ryan?
Well, my favorite artist when I was younger was Dolly.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites.
And so I was fascinated by him and
Yep.
his work. And but I liked M.C. Escher.
Yeah.
But I'd also been visiting the St. Louis Jefferson Memorial for Gateway Arch
Oh, yeah.
by Eero Saarinen.
Yeah, Eero Saarinen, architect.
And yes, and
Yep.
so that piece that he did is what all of my sculptures are based off of, a triangular form on the curve.
Yeah, interesting.
Except his wasn't stretched. I was able to try to create this form by stretching the metal into the situation rather than just assembling. But I'd say after recently going to Zaha Hadid's museum in Michigan in East Lansing,
Yeah.
and saw her whole lifetime of works, from chessboards to jewelry to designer shoes to her concept car to her tables to
amazing,
her
isn't
wall work, and then she did the building, of course. This
Yeah.
is the Eli Broad Museum. And I tell you what, I'm more inspired by her just going through that, and that just leads me kind of into my next direction. I'd like to get into some architectural stuff, that freeform style.
Yeah, well, we'll have to collaborate.
So that'd be wonderful.
That'd be awesome. And we'll fill some beautiful walls with Priscilla's
Paint your
work.
walls.
Yeah, there we go. So that's a good segue to my next question. So what exciting projects or pieces are you currently working on, Ryan?
Well, gosh. I've got to get to some more clay work. I've been it's been at bay for a while now, so I'm getting ready to do a heart buckle for a belt. I'm going to call it the love buckle.
Oh, interesting. That sounds good.
So that's what's coming up next. Outside of that, yeah, I've probably got 50 sketches that haven't hit the steel yet.
Wow.
So I've got a lot of design ready to plug.
What about you, Priscilla?
Probably the black and white series.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Which I've always, done color. I
Yeah,
wear black
I was
all
gonna
the
say.
time because I paint very colorful. And so I've removed all color except one pop of color.
Interesting.
And with that process, my models are underwater. And what it is, based on what I was painting before, the reflection is all over. It's on the skin. It's in the water, that you would see in my paintings. And this time I am making the body the canvas. So I've removed the reflections from the water, except what's above. And now their skin has all the reflections.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
And so, so it's become a little bit more architectural in feel and a lot more contemporary, but it's still figure and it's still water. So that's what I'm really into. And then again, in my studio, I'm working with heavy texture, which is opposite of how I paint.
Gotcha.
For my abstract pieces. So I'm really excited about...
So still experimenting.
Always.
Always experimenting.
Always experimenting.
So besides art, okay, I work with doctors, lawyers, insurance guys, bankers. I design houses for all these people. And a lot of them like to find something to do on the side, like art, okay? What does an artist do on the side? Like if you want to get away from your art, what do you do to relax?
I enjoy designing food.
Yeah.
So
your food is your thing.
I'm a big time foodie.
Yep. It's faster, isn't it? That's why I like it, because it's not months and years.
It's functional art because I can eat it.
Right.
Yeah.
that's obviously why I like it. So.
But no, I like putting things together that I haven't seen before and trying new things. And sometimes we'll find that they don't work.
Yeah.
But recently I did these little small kiwis with some salmon caviar.
Ooh.
and put some cilantro and a little a cilantro sprout, and did that with on a fresh sashimi slice of
my mouth's already
scallops
watering.
of scallop.
Wow.
And so that was a little montage, and it just had all these different
flavors.
texture. It had the sweet, it had the savory. And so that was the latest little creation at Carlos Page Studio when I was cooking dinner for a handful of people over there.
Ryan and I were friends. I just realized we're not because he did not invite me to this.
We tried to get you to come. You were busy.
That sounds awesome. Well, it's not, your dishes sound very sculptural.
And color. I love going to the grocery store and picking things out that are color, oriented. So,
cool.
and fresh, of course. So I don't like to make a list before I go to the store.
Interesting.
I just like to go at it.
You just go in. You
just
be on grocery games.
I can go in and design a few dishes just by walking around.
Just walking around. Oh, that's cool. I love that. And what about you, Priscilla? What's your escape?
My escape actually is travel.
Oh, yes.
If I stay home, if I'm here, I'm always. My list is never ending.
Right.
And I feel guilty not going to the studio and working. So I have to literally get on a plane and take off.
That's what I have to do. If I'm here, I'm going to work.
I'm going to work. And so I would say getting away from the environment. I paint water. I love water. Former swimmer. And the fact that I live in the desert still blows my mind big time. So
You're just craving water.
I do. And so I have a tendency, I'm leaving next Friday. I'm going out of town for 10 days. I'm going to the beach.
There you go.
And
well, you told us you're going to Iceland soon too.
Well, yeah, in the summer I'm going to Iceland, and
talk about reflections in water and blue ice, and that's going to be amazing.
And the colors are totally different. So I do capture that, and I do apply it to my work. But I would say I have to go to the ocean as my number one.
Go-to, escape.
Music is my muse, but still I do escape through music, going to concerts. And if I'm not doing that, I'll read while you guys cook.
Okay, that sounds good. What about you, awesome. Ryan? What's your escape?
Yeah,
besides cooking.
No, it's I love hiking and bicycling and getting out and, exploring new, territory, whether it's in the mountains or islands. Sure. I could see, I need to spend this summer will be some good adventure up on the Great Lakes up in Michigan.
There you go.
So.
Yeah. So what's on both of your bucket lists? Priscilla, give us your bucket list.
So my bucket list has drastically changed. And my doctor actually, I was going through some, personal times and health issues with family members.
Yep.
And she said, I want you to do something. And if I may take my time to, because a lot of my friends have been doing this lately when I told them. And she said, make a list of anything that you've always wanted to do in life. And it doesn't matter what. If you want to have 5 babies, I can't have children anymore, by the way. And she says, you put that down.
Right.
And no matter how weird, how random. And I did that. And so you make this long list. And then you take that list and you say, in this list, what are things that if don't happen, I'm okay with? That if I died tomorrow and these things didn't happen, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden your first list becomes a lot smaller.
There you go. Yep.
And then the third list, and this was the difficult part, she said, now I want a third list of what you notice is not on the first list or second list. And that was huge. It was an eye-opening moment because my old bucket list contained or had several things that this time were not there.
Wow.
So now I had a third list that of things I noticed were no longer there. Then you go to the first list and you say, what's the most important? And second
That's
most
a cool
important.
process.
And it was an amazing process. You have to be bluntly honest, no matter how stupid you think your want is. But difficult was not difficult, but it was enlightening to see what I had did not put on my first list that I always thought I wanted, by the way.
Interesting.
So on my bucket list is more travel.
Yep. We talked about that. We're going to get you on some of the tours.
Yeah, definitely more travel. It made me realize that I wanted a closer knit lifestyle, not as extreme extrovert here, right? And so it's a lot of that has changed. Some of my personal relationships I want change, and that's that. It was not a lot of the material stuff.
Right. Doesn't matter, does it?
No, exactly.
No, especially as you get older, you realize your friendships and your time with special people is so much more valuable.
And what kind of friendships you want.
Right.
I mean, that was one of the biggest change was that what I want out of life from now on. And more important is I looked at this list and I said, I'm going to do it.
Right.
And
well, time becomes a factor.
As
when you're 20, you've got unlimited time. But when you're my age, you really start looking at how am I going to spend these next 10 years? Because I know in 10 years, I'm going to be a completely different person physically than I am now. So if I want to go to climb icebergs in Iceland, I better do it now than 10 years from now.
It's a little bit difficult with an oxygen tank following you. So
yep. So about you, Ryan, what's on your bucket list?
Gosh, I've probably got a lot in there. I'd like to get into flying.
Oh, cool.
That would be, a new adventure to.
Well, I could see how that perspective would affect your work.
And it would be to do acrobatic moves with a plane. So, loops and spins and stalls
it's your
and
work.
all kinds
it's
of
your
stuff.
Work.
So, yeah, that would be, but again, it's something in the bucket list, but that's also tied to a little bit to something with my dad. So my dad's a pilot.
Oh, okay.
And
there you
so,
go.
one of my dreams is to eventually get him a small plane and
that's cool.
And learn to fly myself and then go for some airbending rides.
Wow. That's wild. Then what about Janice? I want to know what's on your bucket list, Janice.
Okay, mine is really simple. It's just buy an island in the Philippines for everyone else to party when we need to.
Okay, you're staying my friend, okay?
Yes.
That sounds awesome. Now, do you cook?
I do for when it is really necessary. So it doesn't have to be artistic, but it feeds the whole army.
There you go.
We have 3 boys in the house.
Yeah.
It's always hungry, but yeah.
What's the age of your boys?
So 2 17-year-olds and a 15-year-old.
Wow, you're busy.
Junior,
you're feeding a
sophomore.
lot of boys.
Yes,
yeah.
So
That's awesome.
It's been fun.
That's so cool. Well, I will. I'll have Tiffany put the story notes on the podcast. But tell us really quick, where can we find you?
So
then actually, I want to talk about that a little bit because
Sure.
you're both pretty good on social media and getting your work out there where people can find you. So yeah, please tell us about that a little bit first too.
Well, certainly here in Scottsdale, it's the first week of January through the end of March is a celebration of fine arts show. That's a good avenue. For me, I've got a gallery up in Grand Rapids, so I'll be there this summer and doing some events. Outside of that, I may poke around out in Miami for during the Basel shows. And outside of that, you can see the website. It's soulartinc.com. It's SOULARTINC.com.
Perfect.
And there's links there for all the social media stuff there.
Okay, good. Have you ever time-lapsed you creating some of your work?
A couple of little, well, I have done some of that, but it's time to do another one.
Yeah.
So
I mean, people are fascinated by process, and I know when I post my drawings as I'm doing them, time-lapsing them, they're like, that's just amazing how you create something like that, So I think people always like that peek under the cover to what an artist does and how they do it. So, so great job. What about you, Priscilla? Where do we find you?
Social media. I mean, just because it's a way of connecting with collectors. So I like that aspect. I do, from shows here, I have a gallery representation. Closest will be Sedona.
Okay.
And I'm entering the Miami market and other markets as well. I have a studio here that anybody can call.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, anybody can call and say, even if they just want to come and see the process and look at the art, it's by appointment only.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really bad, or I'm getting better about the video process. When I go into my studio, it's like
different world.
Well, yeah, I see the paint, I see the canvas, and I want to start. And then at the end, I go, oh, shoot, I had the camera set up. I didn't turn it on. So I since hired my daughter. I have a personal assistant now.
Oh, good.
And she's really good with all that. So that's
smart.
been key.
Yep.
But otherwise, nelsonart.com.
Perfect.
And Nelson Art Studio Instagram and Nelson Art on Facebook. But excellent. Instagram is where I put a lot
that's where
of
I
my
follow
vibes
you.
And, what
you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
That's the more fun stuff.
Well, I find both of you just extremely fascinating. I could sit and talk to you two forever, and I definitely want to do some cooking with you, and you can just come and hang out, Priscilla.
Awesome.
And Janice, and we'll get Isabel, and we'll just...
I will eat, yeah.
And we've talked about a paella night at your studio.
We are.
And maybe we'll get a couple sculptures there, and we just make it a fun evening.
And I'll bring an appetizer. So you do the main course, and I'll bring in an appetizer.
I'll supply the location, the music, and and I can cook actually. I come from a family of chefs and cooks. I just decided 10 years ago that I'd rather paint.
Yeah, well, that's good. So we will definitely have some fun, and thank you so much for coming over here on a Saturday and doing this. This was awesome.
Thanks for having us, Mark.
You.
Yeah, thank you.
So appreciate it, Mark.
Thank you so much, Ryan, Janice, and Priscilla, for your time. We did have a good time both before and after the podcast, so thanks to you all. Definitely check out their work by visiting our episode notes on our Candelaria Design website. Okay, we have some great podcasts coming to you in the weeks ahead, so stay tuned, and thanks for your continued listening. Thank you also for the ratings and reviews, so please give us a rating and review, as it really helps promote our podcast. We do our best to inspire living in everything we do, from our podcast to our cooking classes, our homes, and our tours, which, by the way, we have 2 spots left for our August 10th through the 15th Willamette Valley, Oregon Wine and Food Tour. Details are on our website. Come and escape the Arizona heat with us in Oregon for 5 amazing days of great wine and culinary delights. Okay, have a great week, everyone. Stay safe, and let's all live our lives with love, compassion, grace, and positivity. Thanks for the listen, and we look forward to connecting again soon. Because Inspiring Living is all about the people and the organizations that inspire us, we are excited to have Monogram Appliances as one of our sponsors. Anytime we do a new kitchen or a kitchen remodel, Monogram Appliances are what we recommend to our client. Their appliances are the definition of luxury, meticulously detailed using the finest materials and an ownership experience that is second to none. This is how Monogram is always thinking ahead and inspiring and elevating the kitchen experience. Because at Monogram, they don't just elevate one thing, they elevate everything. I want to say a big thank you to my good friends at Stockett Tile and Granite Company, where your project is our priority. I want to thank the Stockett team, along with so many others who contributed to the success of our fabulous demonstration kitchen in our new Candelaria design office expansion. You will have to check out online our video cooking classes, and our kitchen is amazing. I've had the pleasure of working with the Stockett team for nearly 40 years on many spectacular projects, and trust me, they are the epitome of excellence when it comes to tile, marble, and granite work, bar none. Their skill and customer service is impeccable, and the bottom line is they are just good people. I have traveled with and dined with and just had good times, both personally and professionally, with Dave Stockett and his lovely wife, Becky, and they are the best. When it comes to your next tile and stone project, make sure Stockett Tile and Granite is a part of your team. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed our podcast. We encourage you to write a review, screenshot it, and share it with your friends. Please instant message it to me and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We thank you for listening, and we look forward to sharing more insights to inspiring living next week.